So we're reading the chapter Divisions of Faith, chapter 17, where Krishna is describing how people do different things based on the modes of material nature. People perform penance, they perform austerity, they give in charity, different type of foods that they eat, the different type of associations that they keep. It's all based on how they associate or are influenced by the modes of material nature. So I've been reading going through the Bhagavatam. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the spiritual master of our Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, very great and amazing personality, by all standards, spiritual standards, and by quote-unquote academic standard of the most learned men of the world, he was understood to be an unprecedented genius. And he was very well learned in all types of knowledge, all types of philosophers, both Eastern and Western. He was multilingual. He was amazing. And he said, if all in the books in the world perished in like some type of, cataclysm or Holocaust or something, if only one book remained, the Srimad Bhagavatam, there'd be no loss to the world. If all the other books and all the other knowledge were destroyed, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna himself. And the Bhagavad-gita, that is Krishna's incarnation, in 700 verses in gifts. There's two types of absolute literatures, those that are directly spoken by the Lord himself, or those spoken about the Lord by those who are authorized to do so. Just like if in the law court, the lawyer must have a credential, he has to have passed the bar examination, otherwise he's not allowed to speak on law. And many times if you, without knowledge, were cheated and you hired or accepted the advice of an unauthorized person claiming that they're a lawyer, you could actually get the case dismissed or reopened because just because he was not accredited, whatever he said, whatever he did, right and wrong, is just all thrown out. So being authorized to speak on the absolute truth is a very high qualification, ultimately. But when we have Krishna himself speaking directly, then there's no question of what is the qualification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's completely absolute. So in the 11th canto, which is one of the last cantos, there's 12 cantos, there are some, how many chapters? 31 chapters. And of those 31 chapters, the majority of them are called the Uddhava Gita, where Krishna is speaking a lot of things similar to what you hear in the Bhagavad-gita, but authorized devotees and acharyas have explained that what Krishna speaks to Uddhava is even more confidential. And one reason given is because Uddhava was a more confidential devotee than Arjuna. That's one reason. So we're going to read today's verse that we're up to naturally, but I thought it would be a nice treat for all of us. I think, who here has read the 11th canto? Raise their hand. Okay, so for most of you, this will be a new experience. And Krishna is saying many similar things. We're on chapter 17. We've heard the 14th chapter, which is literally called the modes of material nature. So the way that Krishna is speaking, this chapter number 25, it's called The Three Modes of Nature. That's what the chapter is called in the Bhagavad-gita, but in this chapter 25 of the 11th canto, it's called The Three Modes of Nature and Beyond. So you're getting a little more here. All right. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shruta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagvajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So all of you are regular attendees at 26 Second Avenue, but it never hurts to say and remind us all that we are in a most sacred place. We're right, this is the place where Srila Prabhupada himself established the entire International Society for Krishna Consciousness from this storefront in 1966. And by his empowered preaching and the blessings of all the predecessor spiritual masters, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna himself, Srila Prabhupada did something so unprecedented and so wonderful that all good-hearted people, and even those from a just external observation, like Prabhupada is written up in the Guinness Book of World Records of late bloomers, persons who had amazing success in whatever field after the age of 70. This place has a lot of potency to bless and fulfill our spiritual desires. So we always keep in mind that anyone who speaks here, they're simply acting as the humble servant of Srila Prabhupada to present anew, to give to you again that the beautiful gift of love of Godhead, freedom from birth, death, disease, and old age, and great hope for future, of a wonderful future life and eternality, knowledge and bliss. Srila Prabhupada fulfilled the order of his spiritual master and began the Krishna consciousness movement, which is still expanding and growing today. He started it right here. So, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Sarasvati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshitarane. I offer my humble and respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Srila Abhay Charan Aravinda, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at the feet of the Transcendental Lord. Obeisances unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. You are so kindly and powerfully, I'll add, if I may, purely preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev, and are delivering these Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. So, verse number 22, this is the third verse that's describing charity. We heard in the last two verses how charity given without expectation of return at the proper time and place and to a worthy person is considered in the mode of goodness, and charity performed with expectation of some return or with a desire for fruit of results or in a grudging mood is said to be charity in the mode of passion. So this verse talks about charity in the mode of ignorance. and charity performed at an impure place at an improper time to unworthy persons or without proper attention and respect is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Okay, we'll say together. And charity performed at an impure place.
And charity performed at an impure place.
At an improper time.
At an improper time.
To unworthy persons.
To unworthy persons.
No. Or without proper attention and respect.
Or without proper attention and respect.
Is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
Is said to be in the mode of ignorance.
Short purport by Srila Prabhupada. Contributions for indulgence in intoxication and gambling are not encouraged here. That sort of contribution is in the mode of ignorance. Such charity is not beneficial. Rather, sinful persons are encouraged. Similarly, if a person gives charity to a suitable person, but without respect and without attention, that sort of charity is also said to be in the mode of darkness. Hare Krishna. Simple point, a couple of points, that one, we're on the street a lot, so we see a lot of people begging and devising various methods and signboards, and there's one guy, I don't know if he's still there in Times Square, and he's wearing like a marijuana hat and a marijuana necklace, and his sign says, "Why lie? I need weed," and people are gladly giving him money. "Oh yeah, man, go ahead," like that. Whereas in the same area, the devotees are trying to distribute books, absolute truth, and give them the blessings of the Supreme Lord and information on how they can solve all their problems. And most of the time, a lot of times, it's like, the dazzling lights, and their family members are, they don't even, right, have the experience. Or if they do give, then all right, you give them a book, and they should give $10. He said, "It's a donation. Here's $1. What do you mean? It's like, so not proper respect, not proper attention. So these types of things are in the mode of ignorance. Charity, money that we have represents our hard-earned work, the fruits of our labor, which are ultimately meant to be done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. What is it in the 3rd chapter? Yagnartat kamanonyacha lokayam karma bandhana. Work for Vishnu, for the pleasure of the Lord, has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to the material world. While you were parking the car, we have a little treat. As this chapter is describing all different types of activities that people do, influenced by the modes of material nature, there's a very wonderful chapter in the Bhagavad-gita, which many acharyas proclaim to be equal in a sense to Krishna's teachings to Arjuna, the Bhagavad-gita, but give you a little more. And indeed, we've made the point that chapter 14 is called the modes of material nature, but the chapter that we're going to look at tonight is called the modes of material nature and beyond. So a little prelude is that Krishna, many times throughout his discussion of the various modes of nature and their influence of different activities, said, "But one who performs devotional service to me is transcendental to all of these modes." So here in this chapter, the divisions of faith, we're coming towards the end of the chapter, and Sasha Prabhu, he revealed to me, or gave me the permission, that if I wanted to, I could not just read this one verse, but I could read another. So I think this verse number 23, Krishna is kind of summing up the whole discussion, and it brings us to the point of pure devotional service, but within the, as we're going to hear in this purport, the realm of transcendental sound vibration, which is very nice, because that is the process of self-realization, and even more in the say of achieving the topmost goal of self-realization, which is pure and ecstatic love of Godhead through chanting appropriate mantras, of which the most recommended mantra is the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 23. Om Tat Sad Iti Nirdesho Brahmanas Tri Vidusmrita Brahmanas Tena Vedas Cha Yagnas Cha Vihata Pura. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Supreme. Purport. It has been explained, so here Prabhupada is summing it all up as per Krishna's revelation. Penance, sacrifice, charity, and foods are divided into three categories: the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But whether first class, second class, or third class, so that's a general description. The mode of goodness is first class, the mode of passion is second class, and mode of ignorance is third class or last class. You can read similarly in the Divinity and Divine Service, important beginning chapter 2 in the first canto. Sutta Goswami says that still human beings can get the ultimate benefit by performing activities in the mode of goodness, which is the springboard, as we hear Krishna say, activities in the mode of goodness put one in the most proper position to understand me. And understanding me comes to the point of transcending even material goodness and coming to the platform of pure, it's called Shuddha Sattva goodness, where all of one's activities are nirguna, free from all material infection, and whatever one does is completely pure in all circumstances. Whether first, second, or third class, they are all conditioned, contaminated by the material modes of nature. So people can be in the mode of goodness, not especially in Kali Yuga, nothing is 100% pure. They could be predominantly in the mode of goodness, but their conception of God at best is very vague, and they don't really have a clear understanding of how everything should be done properly. And generally, people in the mode of goodness are very proud or confident in themselves being situated. They think themselves superior to others. We have more money. We are in a better aristocratic situation. We have more intelligence. We like finer things in life. We don't use curse words, whatever. But are they surrendering to Krishna and performing devotional service? Most cases, especially in Kali Yuga, no. When they are aimed at the Supreme, Om Tat Sat, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Eternal, they become means for spiritual elevation. So this is very interesting, that no matter what mode of material nature one is in, or whatever mixture, it's described that Krishna has created the divisions of human society, the Varnashram Dharma situation, that those primarily in the mode of goodness will be Brahmanas. There will be, there are symptoms, like we were saying, that in this Kali Yuga, this time people in the mode of goodness, they're generally not humble, they're proud. But a real qualification of the Brahmin is humility. He understands that he's under the control of multi-energies of the Supreme Lord, and he's not proud of himself being the doer. Krishna says, the bewildered spirit soul thinks himself the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by material nature. So someone in the position of being aware that he is controlled by superior energy of the Lord and using his free will to devote himself to be a representative of the Supreme Lord, such a person is a qualified teacher to impart real knowledge to others. That's really what a Brahmin is. Whereas those who are more inclined to, we'll hear Krishna say, control over others, domination, being famous, also heroism, being very charitable, Courage also means they'll never back down from a challenge to fight, but their fight, or they'll use their power to protect the good people and for a righteous cause. That's the Kshatriya, predominantly in the mode of passion. And those who are in mixed passion and ignorance, the Vaishyas, they're very much interested in making money, business, commerce, and sometimes it gets to the point they'll do it by hook or by crook. So the Vaishyas, they're recommended to temper their tendency to be too greedy with being charitable. And then the Sudras, they're more in the mode of ignorance. They're just more interested in, keeping the body comfortable, having nice family relationships, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And they don't really have the wherewithal to do anything more than just support and facilitate the other sections of society. In other words, they're workers or laborers. They're the Sudras. So this is a natural way that people are placed in the material world. But it's mentioned here that no matter what one's material position, if one dedicates his activities to the Supreme Lord, then even what by external classification, he transcends that and becomes even better than a Brahmin. They become means for spiritual elevation. In the scriptural injunctions, such an objective is indicated. These three words, Om Tat Sat, particularly indicate the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. In the Vedic hymn, the word Om is always found. And you can read the analyzation of Om. It's actually three Sanskrit letters, A, U, and M, which corresponds to A, Krishna. Krishna says one place in the Bhagavad-gita, of letters I am the letter A. And U is the supreme Mul Prakriti, internal potency of the Lord. The Lord has diverse energies, but the supreme and original potency, Hare, is internal potency. Radharani, she is who is the source of all other energies, of which this material energy, Goddess Durga, is just a down the line systemic incarnation or manifestation. And M, the marginal potency, we, the jiva, the living entity, who is meant to be serving the A and the U together in sublime, favorable love of Godhead. That is Om. And the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the full manifestation of what Om is in codified terms. Om is always found. One who acts without following the regulations of the scriptures will not attain the absolute truth. He will get some temporary result, but not the ultimate aim of life. We were just hearing sometimes people set themselves up to be worshipped by subordinates and to be in a powerful position, and this is because of performing penance and austerity to gain such a situation. But such a situation is temporary. One can enjoy it for some time, but not forever. What to speak of for very, very long. The conclusion, he will get some temporary result, but not the ultimate end of life. The conclusion is that the performance of charity, sacrifice, and penance must be done in the mode of goodness. Performed in the mode of passion and ignorance, they are certainly inferior in quality. The three words Om Tat Sat are uttered in conjunction with the holy name of the Supreme Lord, e.g., Om Tad Vishnu. Whenever a Vedic hymn or the holy name of the Supreme Lord is uttered, Om is added. This is the indication of Vedic literature. These three words are taken from Vedic hymns. Omati Etad Brahmano Nidishtam Nama, that's from the Rig Veda, indicates the first goal. Then Tattvamasi, Chandogya Upanishad, indicates the second goal, and Sad Eva Somya indicates the third goal. Combined, they become Om Tat Sat. Formerly, when Brahma, the first created living entity, performed sacrifices, he indicated by these three words the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the same principle has always been followed by disciplic succession. So, this hymn has great significance. Bhagavad-gita recommends, therefore, that any work done should be done for Om Tat Sat, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one performs penance, charity, and sacrifice with these three words, he is acting in Krishna consciousness. So that's why so much stress is given, and rightly so, not just all the time, but particularly now, because this is Kali Yuga, and the prescribed method, and it's even been, because this age is so difficult for real true spirituality, true religion, true virtue, true godliness, that the only method that will work, whereas other methods in the past worked, but not now, is simply chanting the holy name of the Lord. And that's true for everyone, and it won't change for the rest of this Kali Yuga, which is quite a long time more. Krishna consciousness is a scientific execution of the transcendental activities which enables one to return home back to Godhead. There is no loss of energy in acting in such a transcendental way. Narada Muni speaks in the first canto that even a non-spiritual person, they do their duties very nicely. They become the most famous, the most wealthy, the most famous. What does he gain? It's all finished at the time of death. But even one who's trying to become transcendental, even they're unsuccessful, what does he lose? So we say on Harinam, everything to gain, nothing to lose. Not everything to lose, nothing to gain. Which one would you choose? So we want to share with you this from Krishna speaking to his confidential devotee Uddhava, to chapter 3 Modes of Material Nature and Beyond. O best among men, please listen as I describe to you how the living entity attains a particular nature by association with the individual material modes. So we'll see in Krishna's description how intelligent he is, because obviously he's created everything, has made all facility. Just like children, they're get their Christmas gifts, and they might be taken on vacation, and or go to grandma's house, and all the gifts from the other relatives are there, and then the parents and the grandparents, all the they're just enjoying their kids, but especially if they're under the age of 6, getting their toys and the train and the locomotive and the sliding pond or whatever else, and but the kids, they get so much lost in their reverie that they forget that it's supplied by the parents, and sometimes you have to say thank you, right? Or remember where this comes from. So everything is being supplied by Krishna, just like the parents are completely attentive to every affair of their small children. So you'll see. Mind and sense control, tolerance, discrimination, sticking to one's prescribed duty, truthfulness, mercy, careful study of the past and future, satisfaction in any condition, generosity, renunciation of sense gratification, faith in the spiritual master, being embarrassed at improper action, charity, simplicity, humbleness, and satisfaction within oneself are qualities of the mode of goodness. Material desire, great endeavor, audacity, dissatisfaction, even in gain. You did good, you won, but I'm still unhappy. And people look at people who win the Powerball or whatever, and their life becomes even more miserable, before they got the how much did they get? $100 million or some crazy amount of money. Dissatisfaction, even in gain. False pride, praying for material advancement. You just see, like, all right, pray to God. We go to the church, and Prabhupada would remark how the wives of the Nazi German soldiers would be praying to God, send my son and my brother and my husband home. And then when nobody came home, they all became atheists. There is no God. Praying for material advancement, considering oneself different and better than others. Sense gratification, rash eagerness to fight, a fondness for hearing oneself praised. The tendency to ridicule others, advertising one's own prowess and justifying one's action by one's strength are qualities of the mode of passion. Intolerant anger, stinginess, speaking without scriptural authority, violent hatred, living as a parasite, hypocrisy, chronic fatigue, quarrel, lamentation, delusion, unhappiness, depression, sleeping too much, false expectations, fear and laziness constitute the major qualities of the mode of ignorance. Now please hear about the combination of these three modes. The combination of all three modes present in the mentality of I and mine, the ordinary transactions of this world which are carried out through the agency of the mind, the objects of perception and senses and vital airs of the physical body are also beyond the combination of the modes. So Krishna, he's giving the solid knowledge how to understand that we have nothing to do with these modes of material nature. And even within the midst of the modes of material nature working and fluctuating, we remain equal, equiposed, and always conscious of our real identity as Krishna's part and parcel and more as eternal servant in loving devotion. When a person devotes himself to religiosity, economic development, and sense religion for gimme, one for God, two for me. Okay. One for God, oops, nobody looking, three for me. And then it gets to the point, well, maybe nothing for God and all for me, Economic development and sense gratification, the faith, wealth, and sensual enjoyment obtained by his endeavors display the interaction of the three modes of nature. We can't read everything. A person exhibiting qualities such as self-control is understood to be predominantly in the mode of goodness. Passionate person is recognized by his lust, and one in ignorance is recognized by anger. Any person, however, whether man or woman who worships me with loving devotion, offering his or her prescribed duties unto me without material attachment, is understood to be situated in goodness. When a person worships me by his prescribed duties with the hope of gaining material benefit, his nature should be understood to be in passion, and one who worships me with the desire to commit violence against others is in ignorance. The three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, influence the living entity, but not me. Manifesting within his mind, they induce the living entity to become attached to material bodies and other created objects. In this way, the living entity is bound up. So Krishna is giving a clue. The modes don't influence me. So if we worship Krishna, we associate with Krishna, and we serve Krishna, the modes won't affect us either. Because you cannot serve Krishna, associate with Krishna, please Krishna, through being illusioned by the modes of material nature. So therefore, performing and rendering pure devotional service to Krishna is the supreme process not only of purification, but of all activity. It is the final goal. When the mode of goodness, which is luminous, pure, and auspicious, predominates over passion and ignorance, a man becomes endowed with happiness, virtue, knowledge, and other good qualities. When the mode of passion, which causes attachment, separatism and activity conquers ignorance and goodness, a man begins to work hard to acquire prestige and fortune. Thus, in the mode of passion, he experiences anxiety and struggle. When the mode of ignorance conquers passion and goodness, it covers one's consciousness and makes one foolish and dull. Falling into lamentation and illusion, a person in the mode of ignorance sleeps excessively, indulges in false hopes, and displays violence towards others. When consciousness becomes clear and the senses are detached from matter, one experiences fearlessness within the material body and detachment from the material mind. You should understand this situation to be the predominance of the mode of goodness in which one has the opportunity to realize me. You should discern the mode of passion by its symptoms: distortion of the intelligence because of too much activity, the inability of the perceiving senses to disentangle themselves from mundane objects, an unhealthy condition of the working physical organs, and an unsteady perplexity of the mind. That's the mode of passion. And when one's higher awareness fails and finally disappears, and one is thus unable to concentrate his attention, his mind is ruined and manifests ignorance and depression. This situation is understood as the predominance of the mode of ignorance. With the increase of the mode of goodness, the strength of the demigods and righteous increase. When passion increases, the demoniac becomes strong. And with the rise of ignorance, the strength of the most wicked increases. It should be understood that alert wakefulness comes from the mode of goodness, sleep with dreaming from the mode of passion, and deep dreamless sleep from the mode of ignorance. The fourth state of consciousness pervades these three and is transcendental. Learned persons dedicated to Vedic culture are elevated by the mode of goodness to higher and higher positions. The mode of ignorance, on the other hand, forces one to fall head first into lower and lower births. And by the mode of passion, one continues transmigrating through human bodies. Those who leave this world in the mode of goodness go to the heavenly planets. Those who pass away in the mode of passion remain in the world of human beings. And those dying in the mode of ignorance must go to hell, and they take animal bodies. But those who are free from the influence of all the modes of nature come to me. Work performed as an offering to me without consideration of the fruit is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Work performed with a desire to enjoy the results is in the mode of passion, and work impelled by violence and envy is in the mode of ignorance. So it might pass as like friendship. Yeah, I'll give you money so you can buy your next bag of weed. But it's actually envy because you're helping that person to destroy his soul. And you're enjoying it. Just like, of course, he wants the weed. It's just like a kid. Mommy, give me the candy. You know, and the kid is getting diabetes. And mother is not going, first you have to eat your Brussels sprouts, or you have to eat your broccoli, right? Then we'll give you a candy. Not that you're going to eat a whole box of candy. Absolute knowledge is in the mode of goodness. Knowledge based on duality is in the mode of passion. This is a good person, this is a bad person. This is a rich person, this is a poor person. This is a black person, this is a white person. This is a, you know, you can think for yourself all the different classes of people who are at odds with each other, you know. This is knowledge in duality. We're now seeing that we're all equal on the spiritual platform, even though there's seemingly material diversity. That's knowledge in the mode of goodness. Materialistic knowledge is in the mode of ignorance. Knowledge based on me, however, is understood to be transcendental. Residence in the forest is in the mode of goodness. Residence in the town or the city is the mode of passion. And residence in a gambling house is in the quality of ignorance. And residence in the place where I reside is transcendental. Any questions or comments thus far?
Earlier in the Gita, Krishna says that if you can't do devotional service for him, then just work for him. And if you can't work for him, then cultivate knowledge. And if you can't cultivate knowledge, then give him charity. Something like that. I don't know if that's exactly the sequence or not. But
yes,
it's not really specified in terms of, the type of charity. Does that mean anybody who's inspired to give charity just gets like some kind of detachment from the material world, or is it specific to like a certain type of charity? Or
Prabhupada mentions in the purport that due to social constraints or family things, they might not be able to be allowed to give their money to the ultimate cause of spreading Krishna consciousness. But if they give in charity to some philanthropic cause, that's good. It's a stepping stone. It's not the ultimate goal.
It gives them detachment, in other words.
Yes, it gives them piety. Piety, is room for, you could use that to go higher and further, or you could use it to kind of stay where you are. Yes, I'm good. I'm good. A lot of times, son, book this. I'm okay. I'm good. Everything's all right. Right, Gaurav? Right? But you need more. No, I don't need more. I'm okay. I'm good.
You say in Boston, I'm straight.
Huh?
I think you say in Boston, I'm straight.
Straight.
Yeah, I'm straight.
That was like a 90s saying, wasn't it? I don't know.
90s. That's when I was.
I don't know if they. Me too. I don't know if they say that anymore.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can pull it up.
Number 12.
Number 12. Okay.
Chapter.
The chapter, the verse number 11. Well, it's just 10, 11, 12. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So, Prabhupada makes the point in the purport. One who is not able to practice the regulative principles, and do as devotees do, chant 16 rounds and dedicate themselves full time to the mission of the spiritual master, one should be sympathetic to devotees thus doing that. This is verse 10, and in the purport, and they require help. So even if one cannot directly practice the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga, you try to help such work. Actually, Prabhupada remarks, we were just reading in the morning, we have like a little small meditation, and Prabhupada this in Preaching is the Essence, this is in the 4th canto, where the Daksha Yagna is set right, and all different great personalities start offering their prayers to Lord Vishnu, who appeared in the Yagna. And this one verse, the members of the assembly say how this material world is a very dangerous place. There's so much allurement to sense gratification, and you can be bewildered, and your lotus feet are the only shelter. And they're praying that all the fallen and forgetful conditioned living beings when will they come to that shelter and get free from all of their unhappiness and struggle and anxiety in the material world. And Prabhupada says that the workers who go out and propagate Krishna consciousness, not thinkers, not philosophizers, not imaginers. Imagine, there's no... but the workers, they're actually working. Work means manual labor. I mean, it's hard work. You read at the 51st, the last verse of the 11th canto, that they're trying to... It's very difficult to spread Krishna consciousness. People don't want to accept it. It's a very hard thing, not just physically, but on the mind, the people, you might have to go through like 10, 20, or even 30 no's, not just no's, but maybe some like real ribald remarks and insults, to finally find somebody who is very, very sincere. Right, Gaurav?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like filtering, panning for gold, you know. You have to be very patient and free from false ego. So, those who are working, they are the sincerest friends of every living entity, because they follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, who is the greatest friend of everyone. And actually, in the very next chapter, the Ila Gita, at the end of the chapter, this is the chapter where Krishna gives a coda or a final emphasis on the story of Pururava. Pururava was a great king, and he was enchanted by one of the topmost heavenly courtesans, Urvasi, and he entered into a relationship with her that, well, just kind of left him in a lot of great anxiety because of his material attachment to her. And then ultimately he achieved detachment and renunciation, and his mind became peaceful. So Krishna's retelling that story, but giving more of his actual statements in that mature stage of detachment, and it's called the Ila Gita. And at the end of the chapter, he recommends Krishna that one should always keep company with pure devotees and give up the attachment of those people who are attached to gross sensualism in this material world. The devotees of the Lord... What remains to be accomplished by the perfect devotee after achieving devotional service unto me, the Supreme Absolute Truth, whose qualities are innumerable? And this last statement of this text is one of my favorites. I meditate on this. It always gives me happiness. Whose qualities are innumerable, and who am the embodiment of all ecstatic experience. So Harinam was in Times Square today, and I told the devotees they're making an extra book distribution. Go upstairs at Bryant Park Christmas Market and 42nd Street and Times Square. There's just an ocean of people out there, you know. And they went, yeah, it was great, you know, and everybody's looking at the lights, and, you know, the ball is going to drop in Times Square, and, you know, and like so much, you see all these people there, you ask anybody, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Elkhart, Indiana, I'm from Mexico, I'm from here, I'm from there, all over the place, right? And they come hoping they're going to get something wonderful, you know, but it's just like, you know, material sense gratification amplified up with sight, sound, touch, smell, and Prabhupada, when he recorded the Happening album, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, it was done at Bell Tone Studios at 51st Street and Broadway. And they had to wait for Little Anthony and the Imperials, who were famous back then, to record their thing. So there was like an hour. So this is this time here in December, and Prabhupada took the devotees out on a walk in Times Square. And at that time, one of the big signboards was Camel cigarettes. And actual smoke was coming out, and Prabhupada said they make it seem so real, you know. So we want to get something wonderful and get real happiness and experience, but Krishna, if this insignificant material perverted sense gratification is just like a tiny fragmental offshoot through one of Krishna's inferior energies, so what to speak? We can even just begin to imagine how ecstatic it would be to be with Krishna face to face. And that's what the goal of this Krishna consciousness movement is. This is what Prabhupada has come to give. And he told the early beatniks, hippies, and hipsters right here in this very room that you can dance with Krishna, eat with Krishna, talk with Krishna, and enter into a loving relationship with Krishna. And devotees could see tangibly that Prabhupada himself was on that platform, you know, exhibiting highest ecstasies of love of God, and yet at the same time, he was right there with them, with us, and encouraging us, you know, this generation, you know, like looked at by their parents and superiors, you know, you're all like crazy, and, you know, we just beat Germany and Japan, and, you know, we're settling down to like rampant hedonism and material sense gratification that we rightfully deserved, you know, by fighting World War II, and we're the dominant power, you know. and they're just rejecting it. And here comes Swamiji representing not only just an ancient culture, but eternal culture, and giving them love that they never experienced anywhere and everywhere. And yes, I'll become your worker and go out on your behalf. Just amazing. What was the watchword back then? Never trust anyone over the age of 30. Here's somebody over the age of 70. 2.5 times past the allotment. Okay, if you were 29, maybe we'd trust you, right? When the embodiment of all ecstatic, just as cold, fear, and darkness eradicated by one who has approached the sacrificial fire, so dullness, fear, and ignorance are destroyed for one engaged in serving the devotees of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord peacefully fixed. So I meditate this on a glorification of His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. Fixed in absolute knowledge are the ultimate shelter for those who are repeatedly rising and falling within the fearful ocean of material life. Such devotees are just like a strong boat that comes to rescue persons who are on the point of drowning. What did the sages say, Shonaka, to Sutta Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam? We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just that we may accept you as captain of the ship to guide us across this dangerous ocean of Kali Yuga, which diminishes all good qualities of the human being. Just like a strong boat that comes to rescue persons who are at the point of drowning. Just as food is the life of all creatures, just as I am the ultimate shelter for the distressed, and just as religion is the wealth of those who are passing away from this world, so my devotees are the only refuge of persons fearful of falling into a miserable condition of life. My devotees bestow divine eyes, whereas the sun allows only external sight, and that only when it is risen in the sky. My devotees are one's real worshipful deities and real family. They are one's own self, and ultimately they are non-different from me. So they require some help. Any endeavor requires capital, organization, labor, manpower. Just as business, one requires a place to stay, some capital to use, some labor, and some organization to expand. So the same is required in the service of Krishna. The only difference is that in materialism, one works for sense gratification. The same work, however, can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, and that is spiritual activity. I mean, you yourself, Kaliya Krishna, with very good-hearted David Dritta, for years and years supported brahmacharya ashram and straight preaching and book distribution here in New York City by the business that you engaged in at the time. Of course, you're a devotee of own right, but you were doing both. You're practicing Krishna consciousness as a devotee, and at the same time working and giving the fruit of the work to most noble cause. So I could ask, you can answer your own question.
I mean, it was more trying to understand just a random charity that somebody might give. Is that random, because it says before that if you do charity in the mode of ignorance, then, it's not good. So whether, Krishna, I'm not sure if it's specified whether it's charity in the mode of goodness or passion or ignorance that gives you that kind of detachment. Krishna just says charity. I could be wrong.
It says here that if one cannot sacrifice the results of his activities, he can give a percentage to propagate Krishna consciousness. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love of Godhead, whereupon one becomes perfect. If, however, you're unable to work in this consciousness, then try to act giving up the results of your work and try to be self-situated. It may be that one is unable even to sympathize with the activities of Krishna consciousness because of social, familial, or religious